In 56, he did Bebop-A-Lula, you know. Bebop-A-Lula, she's my baby. Bebop-A-Lula, don't mean baby. Bebop-A-Lula, she's my baby. Bebop-A-Lula, don't mean baby. Bebop-A-Lula, she is my baby doll, my baby doll, my baby doll. Cliff Gallup, who was one of the greatest guitar players ever. I don't think a lot of people know who he was. You're a Cliff Gallup fan, tell him.
Well, you know, Cliff was, for those days, 1956, there was just absolutely nobody playing like that. When I first heard the guy play, I was, you know, you got to be kidding me. Where's this guy coming from? And for that time, you know, Cliff Gallup was basically used a Gretsch guitar back in those days, and out of a Standell amplifier with 215s, and with the tape echo that was on the recording was something that was stumbled upon by accident. When they synced up the tape machines to do overdubs, they got this out of phase, you know, delay, which basically here I'm using a simulated pedal instead of the tape echo, which we actually used on our recording. And it gives you basically, you know, your rockabilly.
She's the woman that's got that beat. She's the woman with the flying feet. She's the girl who walks around my store. She's the woman, give me more. Bebop-A-Lula, she's my baby. Yeah. I wore that record out. Cliff Gallup never wanted to go on tour. He didn't want to travel. So he stayed in Norfolk, Virginia. He was a maintenance man for 30 years. Gene Vincent, he did 2 albums with Gene Vincent, and Gene tried to record after that without Cliff Gallup, nothing.
Yeah, he did about 35 recordings, I believe, and he was a maintenance guy in a school till his death in 1988. And I believe put out 1 solo record, I think around 1983, which Guitar Player did an article, and then Jeff Beck, who was probably his biggest fan.
I thought I was the only guy who wanted to stay home. One of the reasons for doing this album is to kind of champion the cause of these guys that are, like I said, Rolling Stone magazine started in '67, so they didn't document a lot of this wonderful, the artists. There was a lot of artists in the 50s, I believe. And sometimes people look at that era like a kind of you know, one-hit wonders, you know, cute little record, you know, they have a, it's like a caricature of what was going on, not the real deal, you know. I'm gonna really fuss, I'm gonna really hard. I'm working on someone just to try to. One thing I wanted to say is that a lot of these guys, when I say rock and roll, they rocked and they rolled. Today it's like the bands today sound like Oscar the Grouch. But there ain't no cure for the summertime blues. You know, like on Sesame Street, boom, boom, boom. It just makes, you know, it's all rock, no roll. You know, there's no tone. So I don't think they make records like this anymore, you know, so I think people are going to enjoy this album. I worked with Eddie Cochran at the Palace Theater on 46th Street on Broadway. And that's the guitar he had.
Pretty similar, pretty similar. He used this actually, had a different pickup in the neck position, which was a P90. And then had actually the Dynasonic or the D-Armand pickup in the bridge position. But this was basically the same guitar that he used. And
yeah, and he ran his amp into the men's room in Los Angeles at the studio to get that. They didn't have effects back then.
Yeah, whatever sound you could get, you'd stick an amp in a hallway, you know, and they do echo chambers. They'd take a room, find a nice sound, stick a speaker in there, put a mic on it, and to get that particular, you know, whatever it took. And actually, on this record, we had amps in bathrooms, hallways, you know, wherever we could to trying to simulate some sort of nice, authentic room
The
tone.
man's a maniac. He's like, hang the amp here, 3 feet up.
You know, actually, Gene Vincent and those guys. And actually, on one of his albums, he has a song called, I believe, 3 Stars, which talks about the death of Buddy Holly and Richie Valens and the Big Bopper. And I think there's a line in there where he says, well, they say I was young, you know, but you were only 17, talking about Richie. And that's the people he was listening to. That was his inspiration. And actually, he died in a car accident. Gene Vincent was in the car with him.
That year, the same year he recorded that song. Yeah, they were close. I think Gene and Eddie Cochran traveled together a lot. I think
I believe they were in England when this happened, because Gene Vincent basically left the States, I guess, in the late 50s or so, early 60s.
Yeah, he moved to England in 60,
yeah.
And then he had Eddie Cochran come over. He says, you got to come over here and tour with me. Eddie went over, and
Gene remained there as like a cult hero, and all through the 60s, the British people just embraced this guy. And then came back and got a record deal, I guess, in about 1969, and performed with Lennon in Toronto. And then when he passed away in '71, he passed away from ulcers. That I think he fell and ruptured an ulcer in his stomach and died. He was living with his parents.
Elvis